Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Class, I was just talking with Brad, our engineer, and I was asking him about the rapport he has with the various hosts of the shows he engineers. And he says it's important to have a good rapport. And I'm paraphrasing. I'm not saying exactly his words, and it's really, really nice to have a great rapport with the engineer. It really is. And Brad, I want to thank you. And I think he wanted to say something like this. I think he wanted to say, Vinny, of all the shows I engineer, yours is the most recent. Brad, was that right?
That's exactly what I wanted to say, yeah.
Dr. Shealy, are you blessed?
How could I not be?
Oh, jeez. Dr. Shealy, it's great to hear your voice. How's Dr. Shealy?
He is great. How about y'all?
Yeah, we're doing really well. Now it's y'all. It's y'all in the South, right? It's
right.
Yous guys in Philadelphia and the Northeast, and it's Ewans here in Missouri. So how are Ewans doing?
Well,
and I never heard Ewans until we moved to Missouri. Dr. Shealy, do you have any updates that you'd like to share with us?
well, yes. It's not totally finished yet, but for many months we've been looking at planning to put out a superfood for people. You know, a huge majority of people do not eat good food, and one of the meals that is most often muffed, if not worse, is breakfast. Every day for breakfast, when I mix a slush that has about 40 grams of protein and equal to 5 servings of fruits and vegetables and antioxidants. And it takes me all of 2 or 3 minutes to mix it. But we've been trying to find a company that will mix everything together so you don't have to go into 2 or 3 different packages to get everything. And we have just got yesterday our new blender bottle, a 32-ounce plastic bottle with a ball in it so that you don't have to have a shaker of any other kind. So we hope, and yesterday I finally found a company who will mix the stuff for us. So by the end of August, I hope to have what I would call our best superfood breakfast.
I'm so glad you're onto that, and I'll tell you why. I try to eat a really good breakfast because I know I haven't eaten since the night before, and I know my body's has been repairing itself overnight, and I know that from breakfast on I'm going to be busy all day, and I know it's really, really important. So I try to take the vitamins, minerals, supplements, and so forth to carry me through the day because I can't afford the luxury of not being on top of my game. I really can't. I'm pretty busy. So I'm really glad that you've mentioned this. And I assume that Dr. Sergey Sorin is collaborating on this with you. Is that right?
Yes. Oh, yes, definitely.
And here's why I mentioned that. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy, medical doctor, has a medical practice partner by the name of Dr. Sergey Sorin. And he is an MD as well, medical doctor as well. He's also an emergency room doctor. So he sees the worst of the worst. helping people survive who are on the razor's edge of life and death in the emergency room whenever he's there. He's also a mixed martial arts practitioner. So he goes and he fights. He takes his perfectly good body and then subjects it to risk. Okay? I believe he's probably yes, absolutely brutal. Yeah, yes. And so here's where I'm going with this, class. If Dr. Sergey Sorin and Dr. Norman Shealy, both medical doctors, are interested in providing you with the very best in breakfast, I think it's going to be fabulous, because Dr. Sergey Sorin, the last thing he wants is to be at 99% of his game, because he can get killed. Right? I mean, he could literally get killed in those tournaments.
And
so
of course,
he needs to be at 100%.
Or don't do well is breakfast. I mean, a huge number of people don't eat anything in the morning. Mm-hmm. And yep. To me, I've always felt that I need food to start the day, and
Absolutely.
So I do it. And it isn't that I don't like eggs and oatmeal and stuff like that, but this is a lot quicker to do, and it sustains me further. In other words, I can go sometimes all day, although I try not to because I don't need to lose weight. But it keeps me from being hungry, and I think it's because of the high protein content.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sounds fabulous. I can't wait to buy some. Seriously, I'm looking forward to that. So a couple months out, and we're going to be there, right?
At the most, yes. I hope within 1 month, but we'll see.
You know, one of the things that I've noticed with people who take supplements of various kinds, one of the first things that they say, and this holds true. The freeze-dry guy would come to the expo, and they would say the same thing about what he was offering, his freeze-dried offerings, long-term storage food. They almost always say the same thing. It tastes good. Or they didn't like the taste. And it seemed to me that the taste was so important to most people. Now, to me, it's really not that important. If I'm looking at long-term storage food, I'm more interested in the caloric content, the nutritional value, and the protein and so forth, more than I'm interested in how I like the taste. Because if I'm in one of those situations, it's...
I'm with you. Survival is somewhat more important than pleasure.
Yes. However, I think to be successful in the marketplace, people are interested in how it tastes, how it feels, how it looks, those kinds of things. So, are you offering various flavors?
Not to start with. Our plant, it will have a slight berry flavor. Mm-hmm. But, have you ever tried with 10 people to get a consensus on flavor?
It's impossible.
Right. And
it's impossible.
But anyway, it will have 6,000 ORACs. That is the antioxidant. Mm-hmm. The minimum daily intake of ORAC should be 5,000. So we've taken care of the minimal need in antioxidants right there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I can tell you that I thought everybody liked chocolate. So if you were to if you were to develop a chocolate flavor, let's just put that on the table. Okay, that's a possibility. I actually met a guy. We could add a
lot more ORACs. We could add 3,000 or 4,000 ORACs with a teaspoon of cocoa powder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I met a guy recently who said he didn't like chocolate. Now I thought that was illegal. I thought that was illegal to not like chocolate.
Well, let's just say it is abnormal. I think we can truthfully say that it must be less than 1% of people who don't like chocolate.
And the reason I mention that is you're talking about getting a group of 10 people to agree on on some flavors. And so here's one now who if you said, all right, well, I'll tell you what, we'll just make it chocolate because everybody likes chocolate. Well, that's not the case either. But that was the point I was trying to make. So yes, it is a difficult row to hoe to try to find flavors that everyone likes. Dr. Shealy, I was thinking about something that I would love to chat with you about this morning. And it'll take me a few minutes to describe this. Now, it'll sound like I'm describing a project that I've been working on, and yeah, I have. But it's germane to the discussion. It actually relates to medicine. And that is, and here's my question. And so if you could address this at the end of what I say, that'd be wonderful. How important is it to have some sense of accomplishment in order to be healthy? So that's kind of the question. And let me just describe what I'm talking about. So I decided to build a solar off-grid system. Okay, so that was our goal. And it wasn't because Mrs. Finelli said, have you looked at the neighbors? Have you seen what those guys are doing? You know, they're building these solar arrays, and we don't have one yet, so you better get going, Vinny. It wasn't like that, okay? It was, we decided that we wanted to have some off-grid independence. So I did some research, and it took me, by the time I was done, 6 months into it to get a feel for how this all works. And then I decided that, well, I could, you know, where do we put the array of these solar panels, and how big is it? So I did more research, and I found out that if I spend $3,500, I can just buy this rack. Well, I didn't want to do that. So I decided I was going to make our own rack. But what was I going to make it out of? So I did some more research, and I found some industrial shelving, and I researched the angles that I needed to point the solar array in at a specific angle. In our case, it's about 37 degrees. And then I found this used industrial shelving, but I'd have to fabricate the array, and it would require cutting angles and measuring. Well, I didn't have all the tools I needed, so I needed to buy a chop saw, a metal cutting, circular saw that's on a pivot. Well, I researched that, and I found the right one. I found it at the right price. I ended up with a DeWalt 12-inch. Chop saw, and then I needed to weld it all together. Well, I didn't have the exact welder I needed. I needed a MIG welder, which uses inert gas to shield the weld bead from the air to make a good weld. And so I found a used welder on Craigslist and got it at half price. And let me tell you the rest of the story. And the reason I'm telling you this is to relate to a sense of accomplishment on a large scale. But it was a whole bunch of small pieces of accomplishment. And what I want to know is, how important is that to be healthy? Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. I'm Vin Finelli. Okay, so if you want to know, if you want to know what it's like to overdose on bliss, this is it. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us. So we're talking about a sense of accomplishment. And so I've been talking about this project that I've been working on for probably a year, if you start with the beginning of it. So I wanted to build this solar off-grid system, and I wanted to build this array and this rack to hold these solar panels. And so I needed to learn how to use a specific kind of welder that I didn't have yet, and I had to buy one, and I found one used on Craigslist. And so then yesterday and a few days ago, I finally got to the point where we welded up all the damage to our post hole digger. We drilled 10 holes, and we formed the concrete in these holes, and we got the piers built, and they're 10 piers, and we wanted them to be precise within 1/4 of an inch out of square at the max, and 1/8 of an inch off being level from across all 10 of these piers. And the array is a little over 45 feet long. So 10 piers, and we wanted them precisely in the right spot, at the right height, and plumb and level and all, and square. And then, so I was, we finally got it done late last night, about 8 o'clock last night. We were finishing up with the forming and the pouring of the concrete. And how much concrete? About 3,000 pounds. Maybe a little over 3,000 pounds. And so the point of all this, Dr. Shealy, is there were a bunch of small accomplishments to get to this point over a year. So we were on and off this project for over a year, but it's still not done. We still haven't erected the rack. We have it all built. It's all welded. Mrs. Finelli's painting it, and so she's involved. Our son's involved. I'm involved, and we're all involved in the engineering. I'm explaining exactly why we're doing what we're doing, and I'm asking them if they have any better ways of doing it. So all of us in the family are participating in this project. Now, I think it's a wonderful thing, and I feel really good when I have a sense of accomplishment. How important is it to a person's health to have these, not necessarily what I'm doing, but accomplishments that they can say, you know what, I did that. I feel good about that.
Well, I think it's important from early childhood on. This is part of what gives a person a sense of being acceptable, okay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay. Now,
and ultimately, it always involves doing something that helps other people. I mean, in this case, you're talking about all kinds of other people that are being assisted by your doing this.
One of the things that I wanted to talk about when I'm on stage making my case for why I should be elected or selected for the board of directors of the Electrical Cooperative, one of the cases I want to make is that if enough of us had alternative energy, and if enough of us had extra energy that we could put back on the grid, and should we have a coronal mass ejection, and it took down the grid, I know that we can separate ourselves on our portion of the grid under the electric cooperative that I'm a member of, that we could separate ourselves and we could use the energy that a whole bunch of us who have these arrays putting electricity back on the grid, we could actually, it'd be tough. I mean, it wouldn't be all that comfortable, and we probably wouldn't have air conditioning, and we'd have to use electricity very sparingly. However, we could probably survive where other parts of the grid might not survive. So yeah, and one of the messages that I'd like to deliver is that if we start getting enough of us together to do this now, and if we teach enough people to do this, it might be a whole bunch better for all of us when this coronal mass ejection occurs. Because according to the research I've been doing, we're late. We're late in having this, the latest Carrington event, if you will, that happened in the 1850s. So that was my thought. Is there a substitute, Dr. Shealy, for a sense of accomplishment? Because people go to work, and a lot of people don't like their jobs.
Well, that's true. A lot of physicians don't like their jobs.
Wow.
I mean, it's amazing.
Wow, and is that because their patients don't follow their advice? I mean, why would a physician not like his job? I would think it'd be really cool to be able to say, Mrs. Smith, do this, and this, and we'll see you in about 3 weeks, and I'll bet you're going to feel better. Let's make that appointment. Come on back and let's talk about it and see how it worked. Class Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and if you'd like to go to his website and get the same newsletter I get, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And when you're there, you can sign up for the newsletter, or you can go to look at the product offerings. You can look up Bliss. The Bliss oils, the essential oils. You can look up magnesium lotion and spray, and the books and more, and the Relax Mate. So if you're interested, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, you're talking about physicians who are they unhappy with what they do? What's the deal? It's not the patients?
Well, it's largely your blank government. Things took a downhill to some extent in 1965. That was the beginning of true government intervention in medicine. When Medicare came in. Total medical expenses went from 4.5% in 1965 to 12% by 1970. Today, they're 12% of gross national product. Today, over 50% of physicians are dissatisfied, and almost 50% plan on retiring early, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's largely because of nonsense, government nonsense. At least 54% don't like the fact that they're essentially forced to use a computer to do their medical records now, and on it goes.
So, Dr. Shealy, are you saying that doctors would love to be able to practice medicine the way they feel it should be practiced in their own office, in their own clinics, and with their patients, and have that relationship with the patients. However, they're being told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and how many to do it to, and how much they can be compensated or not compensated for it. Is that part of what's going on? Is that it?
I mean, actually, a significant portion of physicians will not see Medicare patients at all. A similar percentage of physicians will not see Medicaid patients at all. And the vast majority of physicians believe that they did not have adequate time to spend with the patient.
Yeah, that's 7 minutes per office visit. Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah. Interestingly, our son, I found out that we were chatting about doctor's visits and things like that. And our son mentioned that, they took a picture of me. I'm thinking, took a picture of you. So why is that? And then it was obvious. The reason is that the medical practitioners have so many patients, and they only get to see them for such a short amount of time, that before they see a patient, maybe it might be the patient's mother or father or spouse or sister or brother in the exam room with the patient, and the doctor wants to be able to recognize his patients. So the way they do it is they've got a picture of them. So I can say, let's see what this guy looks like. Okay. Yep, got it. And then they go into the room and they go, yeah, you're my patient. Now I know. Yeah, I remember you. Yeah, I just saw your picture 30 seconds ago. That's not the way you practice medicine, is it, Dr. Shealy?
No. I honestly will not. I mean, I will see a patient who has a very specific complaint in a half hour instead of an hour. But for a totally new patient, and most of my patients are complex problems, I like an hour. I don't want to feel that I can't give all the attention I need to that patient.
Dr. Shealy, when you talk about your patients having complex problems, are these patients who have tried, just say everything else, and then they go, you know what?
In general, I don't see what I would call virgin patients. Most of mine are burned out from failures of conventional medicine. Or the ones who have looked at what's available in conventional medicine and aren't willing to go there.
Burned out from conventional medicine. So that sounds to me, Dr. Shealy, like they've tried it, and they've tried it, and they've tried it, and there's no answer. There is no answer that they have found up until the point where they've contacted you.
Well,
is that right?
True.
Is that what we're talking
about? Most of them are not only not better, they are worse than when they started.
I was talking to one of our family members, and he was saying to me, "Oh yeah, she's going to have surgery," and he was talking about a young girl maybe in her between 20 and 30 years old, and she's having some back surgery. I said, "Oh wow, why?" And he said, "Well, they put these plates in to straighten her spine, and they had these screws, and some of the screws are backing out." I said, "Wow, some of the screws are backing out." And I said, "This sounds like it has a lot of risks associated with putting these screws in." And he said, "Yeah, they're going to put in some heavier hardware, and they're going to put some plates in and to the base of her spine." I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty risky stuff. And so here's a case where a young woman who has had surgery, and they're going to have to do it again because, it didn't work all that well the first time. Now we're talking about putting her under, right? And there's risks of memory loss. And actually, aren't there risks of death with putting someone under for a major surgery like this, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, yes. It's, quote, only 1 in 2 or 300.
Wow. Well, so who's going to want to put his or her hand up and say, "I'll tell you what, I'll be that one. Yeah, I'll sign up for that." Jeez, that's pretty scary stuff.
The idea of using screws and metal plates to fuse the spine is also, in my opinion, barbarian. It works extremely well with bone to fuse the spine, and then you don't have all that complication of screws that can come loose and break and all that stuff.
How about, Dr. Shealy, how about those who have scoliosis?
Now, that's
curvature
a totally
of the
different
spine.
problem. Depends on the degree of scoliosis. If treated early, and it usually begins at puberty, and is much more common in women than men. But if it's treated by an excellent chiropractor, this is one of the things where I consider chiropractic to be highly evolved above anything in conventional medicine. But it has to be someone who knows what they're doing. But they are those people.
Okay. So if you have curvature of the spine, are you recommending that that person sees a chiropractor early? Is that what?
As early as possible, and one who has experience with, with treating this with manipulation. They call it, of course, adjustment.
Class, if you'd like to call in and talk to Dr. Norman Shealy, 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. And, of course, we have the listen line, 605-477-3249, 605-477-3249. It's up 24/7. Dr. Shealy, I was thinking about plastic and plastic in our food supply. And, if you buy cheese, in most cases, not in the Dr. Norman Shealy's case because that comes packaged in wax, but if you were to buy cheese at the convenience of a supermarket, you'd probably find the cheese is packaged in a plastic wrapper of some kind. And if you get pseudo cheese or something they call cheese food, you'll find it's individually wrapped in plastic within plastic. Now, here's my question about cheese and about plastic. So it's possible to go to like a Sam's Club or a Costco and buy 3 pounds or so of cheese, similar to what Velveeta, the box of Velveeta would look like, the outside dimensions. And it would be sliced in a whole bunch of slices, maybe almost 200 slices of this 3 pounds of cheese. Now, I don't know anybody who can use that much cheese before it would go bad. So some people might take that 3 pounds of cheese and divide it up into, let's say, 10 smaller packages of cheese and put them, the 10 divisions of cheese, into Ziploc sandwich-type bags or freezer bags, put them into the freezer, and then pull them out as needed and let them defrost in the refrigerator. So here's the question about plastic and cheese. Now, the cheese has oils. And are you concerned as a medical doctor about the oils in the cheese, or maybe other chemicals within the cheese, even the natural chemicals within cheese, absorbing plastic from the package that the cheese is now in and being introduced as a contaminant in the slices of cheese as we then use them later on from our refrigerator? Are we poisoning ourselves with plastic? Is that a concern? Do we use wax paper? What do we do? Is there an alternative?
Well, I have never even thought about it, to be quite honest. And I don't know any studies that would, prove what you're saying. Personally, I have a vacuum packer, which I often use, although I use that mostly for vegetables and stuff out of the garden and meat. I certainly do when I open a cheese. I put it into a great big plastic baggie to keep it in the refrigerator even. So I think it's a great question, and I will do some research on it to see if I can find out.
Okay, because I do this, and many of our listeners who like to buy things in bulk may do the same thing, because it's more economical to buy a restaurant-size block of cheese and freeze the unused portion, which would probably be about 90% of that block of cheese, put it in the freezer and use it later. And one of the things that we do here at the farm is we buy things in bulk, and then we store them. And so if we buy pasta, we don't buy 1 or 2 boxes, we'll buy 2 or 3 cases. And if we were to use pasta, don't buy it very much anymore because of the warnings that Dr. Shealy has issued. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. Dr. Shealy, I got an email from one of our instructors, and it has to do with Senator Roy Blunt, B-L-U-N-T. And the article is from motherjones.com, and it says, Senator Roy Blunt, Monsanto's man in Washington. It's dated April 4, 2013. And the article goes to say, and I quote, as I reported a couple of weeks ago, a recent Senate bill came with a nice bonus for the genetically modified seed industry, a rider wholly unrelated to the underlying bill that compels the U.S. Department of Agriculture to ignore federal court decisions that block the agency's approval of new GM crops. As I explained in this post, why such a provision, which the industry has been pushing for over a year, is so important to Monsanto and its few peers in the GMO seed industry. Goes on to say, which senator pushed the rider into this bill? At the time, no one stepped forward to claim credit. But since then, Senator Roy Blunt, Republican of Missouri, has revealed to Politico's ace reporter David Rogers that he's responsible. He's the responsible party. Blunt even told Rogers that he worked with GMO seed giant Monsanto to craft the rider. The admission shines light on Blunt's ties to Monsanto, whose office is located in the senator's home state. According to Open Secrets, Monsanto first started contributing to Blunt back in 2008 when it handed him $10,000. At that point, Blunt was serving in the House of Representatives. In 2010, Blunt was he successfully ran for the Senate. Monsanto upped the contributions to $44,250. And in 2012, the GMO/seed pesticide giant enriched Blunt's campaign war chest by $64,250. Blunt is also a magnet for political action money from the agribusiness industry as a whole. Open Secrets data shows. In 2012, the Ag Biz PAC gave him $51,000 more than any other industry except finance, insurance, and real estate. In 2010, the year of his Senate run, Ag Biz handed him over $243,000, more than any other besides the fire industry and real estate group. Okay, so here's what Senator Blunt did. He took money from Monsanto to help them in their business with genetically modified foods and, of course, glyphosate. Dr. Shealy, are you concerned about...
Well, I've long considered him to be a pimp, and that's the kindest word I can use anywhere in public for Roy Blunt. I don't like him. I wouldn't vote for him. I think he needs to be gotten out of office yesterday. Other than that...
Yeah. And Dr. Shealy, is there a special kind of defect that a person might have to...
Yeah, it's called moral sanity.
the lack of moral sanity?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, we've got Evan in Pennsylvania. Welcome, Evan.
Hello there. I have a question for Dr. Shealy. In one of your guided meditations, you talk about how we can control our emotions. When I'm really upset and really angry, it doesn't feel like it. Does that just mean that I need to practice more detaching? Can you talk more about controlling emotions, please?
Absolutely. You know, there are all kinds of ways of doing this. The basic is the autogenic training, and people who will practice that twice a day for 3 months generally are good enough that under circumstances within a couple of minutes they can get it turned off.
Great,
Evan, would you consider holding through the break and we'll continue this discussion?
Oh, I'd be happy to do that. Thanks.
Okay.
Great. So she's going to hold. Evan's going to be back with us. Dr. Norman Shealy's going to be back with us. We're going into top of the hour commercial announcements and the news. This is USA Prepares. I'm Vincent Finelli. So we'll be back And if you'd like to call us, we'll pay for the call. 866-582-9933. 866-582-9933. Everyone all set, cocked, locked, blissed? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us, normshealy.com. And Yvonne in Pennsylvania is with us. And she was talking about detaching, and we've been talking about autogenic training, and you were interested in controlling emotions. Did you have something else you'd like to say and ask Dr. Shealy more?
Ways. I know because I have been practicing for a couple hours a day now for 2 months, and I am doing much better because of it. But I do find the times that if I'm like super upset and super angry, it's hard for me to really, it's hard for me even to like sit through the guided meditations without crying and being upset.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
wondering if I'm doing something wrong or if I just need more time.
Yeah, it takes time and practice. I had a note last week from a man who said, I woke up this morning with 8 out of 10 anxiety. I listened to the autogenic training, and now it is 0. Now, he had been at it for a while. Everybody's different, but in general, doing autogenic training twice a day for 3 months is a baseline for getting to the state where you can detach rapidly.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Now, Dr. Shealy, what about redirection? Now, for example, in my case, when the state decided to go after me and threatened to take our farm, I was pretty angry about that. And I decided, well, I'll tell you what, let me just turn this around and make it positive. So I've been teaching people how to pay less taxes. And I've really enjoyed teaching people how to pay less taxes and, give the state less, make them work harder for it, give them less funding to beat us up with, our own money.
Well,
what about redirection? Like I've learned from you.
Fabulous. This is it. Whatever the problem, you always ask the question, is there anything I can do to change this? And then, am I capable of doing it? Do I have the strength and, to carry through with it? If you do not feel that you can do it or you have the strength to do it, then you need to divorce the problem with joy. Thank God I'm done with that. Put it aside. And accept and forgive. That's the ultimate, is spiritual acceptance and forgiveness of the SOBs in your life.
Oh, that is so awesome. So that helps me know that when I'm that upset, that besides doing the guided meditations, I also need to take out the little card that does talk about detachment and then ask myself, do I need to accept or divorce or forgive?
Absolutely perfect. I'm so glad you've got that little card.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you so much.
But before you go, Yvonne, I don't know if you've heard this story, but Dr. Shealy talked about a patient who had cancer, and she was a middle-aged gal, and she was going to die. She was going to die of this affliction that she had, and she was so angry. And Dr. Shealy, would you share the rest of that story? So Yvonne,
I did a 20-minute exercise on forgiveness, and this woman who was brought in the room on a stretcher got up and walked out of the room free of pain. 3 months later, her cancer was gone, never to return. And a year and a half later is when she told me what happened. She suddenly realized how angry she was with her family, and this is a direct quote, I decided I'm not going to let the bastards kill me. I got well, and my husband committed suicide.
Wow.
And so this gal was being, and I'm interpreting, and tell me if I'm wrong, was being tormented and mentally tortured by a family member, and she decided that she was going to divorce herself from that, and as a result, she was cured of her illness. And she's fine. But
let me tell you, Doc, she's the one who said he committed suicide. 2 years earlier, he had had a kidney transplant from her favorite of their 2 sons. She had nursed him through that, But when she developed cancer, he rejected her totally and insisted that the dishes even be washed separately in the dishwasher. And
Wow.
she resented that. So
Sure.
when she got well, he got so upset over the fact that he actually rejected his kidney and never had any trouble for 2 years, rejected his kidney and died of kidney failure.
Wow. Wow. That is so interesting.
My favorite
Yvonne,
statement is you cannot afford the luxury of anger, guilt, anxiety, or depression.
Right.
Yvonne, I think
need
that
to let it go.
I think that's the single most important takeaway from our discussion with Dr. Norman Shealy, that you can't be angry, and I mean really, really angry, and let that consume you and be well at the same time.
And again, please don't miss it. It is okay to get angry, but then don't fester. Don't allow it to stay with you. Make that decision as quickly as possible. Can I change it? Am I willing to fight it? Or am I willing to divorce it?
Right. So I accept the anger as a feeling, so I don't stuff it, but I don't dwell on it. I let it go as quickly as I can.
Exactly. Don't play the broken record.
Right. Great.
Yvonne,
Thank you
in my
both
case,
so much. Yeah.
Yvonne, in my case, the state of Missouri had threatened to steal our farm, and what is our farm? Well, that is 4 generations of very, very hard work, okay, to get to this point. It took literally 4 generations to build this farm, from savings and not taking vacations, and then when the state decided they wanted to confiscate it illegally, immorally, and without grounds. It was a very serious fight. They wanted to take everything that we worked for all of our lives, and my father's life, and my mother's life, and our grandparents' life, and our children's life who work on the farm. They wanted to take it, and it really made me angry, and I came out swinging. And then once we won, once we beat them at their own game, I could have let it fester, but Dr. Shealy taught me, and he taught our class, that don't let these things fester. You know, yes, you can be angry, and when I was in this fight, which took several months, I was really angry, and literally I came out swinging at these guys, and we exposed them for the criminals that they are, unconvicted criminals. And now I've changed that into a positive thing, where I just love teaching people how they can beat them at their own game. Literally. So I did 7 one-hour broadcasts on how to pay less taxes, how to avoid paying taxes, how not to give these thugs anything. And so, you know, in your world, in your way, in your life, if you can find something similar to what I've done, I'll tell you what, it's awesome. You know, so instead of being really angry, I smile and I think, this is great. We're using their own hammer to beat them up with. It's great.
It doesn't pay to fight with Vince Finelli.
Oh, well, thank you both so much. You've been so helpful. I really, really enjoy listening to the show all the time.
Well, thank you for calling.
Yvonne, you sound like a wonderful person. I can hear it in your voice. And thank you for calling in.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Doesn't she sound sweet, Dr. Shealy?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. You know, I was looking at a post, and I know people have done this. I know people who have done this. And what they've done is they have consumed hydrogen peroxide. They think that there are medical benefits of drinking a solution of hydrogen peroxide or taking a teaspoon of hydrogen peroxide, just swallowing it, and it will help cure them of maladies, sinus infections, and so forth. And there's a post on the internet talking about this and how people who have taken high concentrations of hydrogen peroxide for sinus infections, inflammation, and other ailments have made themselves sick, and, well, they've ended up in the emergency room. Dr. Shealy, can you share with us your medical opinions about hydrogen peroxide and its internal consumption?
Well, I like it on the skin. and that's about it. I'm not opposed to a 50-50 dilution for irrigating the ear if you know that there's no hole in your eardrum. But as far as drinking it, no. When I look at what happens when you put hydrogen peroxide, let's say a little drop of blood, and how it almost explodes,
Yes.
I can't imagine it's good for you orally. And there are people who talk about giving it intravenously. Well, I see no scientific foundation or safety that would allow me to do that.
I was looking at this article, and it says that if you swallow this liquid, consume it, it can burn holes in the esophagus, the stomach. It can create oxygen bubbles, and they can then be released into the bloodstream. And there's a possibility that these bubbles can travel to the brain, cause seizures and stroke-like symptoms. So is it dangerous? I guess the answer is yeah. So
yes, I agree. I think it's not recommended. That's the kindest way I could put it.
So there you have it, class. If you're thinking about consuming orally hydrogen peroxide, the answer is from us. Don't do it. Do not do it. There's a steakhouse in Silicon Valley, Dr. Shealy, and this steakhouse is pretty expensive. This is for those newly wealthy entrepreneurs and Silicon Valley types that have more money than brains. And we'll talk about a $600 a head steak dinner. With gold. There's gold in Silicon Valley. And this particular restaurant, very small portion, gold flake. Class, Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and we're talking about medicine. And you're probably going to wonder, what is the relationship about what we're going to talk about next? And there is a medical question I have. So, in Silicon Valley, California, Los Altos to be specific, there's a newly opened Japanese restaurant. And it only has one table. And it can accommodate between 6 and 8 people. There's no menu. There are no windows. There's just one table. And it's open by appointment only. And at a minimum, if you want to have a seat, and if you can get in, and if you have the $395 per head, that's the minimum, you can have dinner there. And dinner actually averages between $500 and $600 per person. And that includes a beverage and tax. Yeah, you heard me right. Between 5 and... I'm not talking about a dinner party. We've got 20 or 30 people. I'm talking about per person, $500 and $600 per head. And so what do you get? You get a very small portion, okay? And I mean a small portion. If I were there, I'd say, well, that's a fine appetizer, but what's for dinner? I mean, it's really, really small.
Only if you look at $500, you might get a meal.
If you look at the plate, it's mostly empty real estate. It's got garnishes that, you wouldn't eat those. Mostly vacant real estate on the plate. A very small piece of meat, 3 small pieces of vegetable. I mean, so small that 4 spoons would be plenty of spoons to remove the vegetables from the plate. So I'm talking about 4 spoons full of vegetables. That's it. And the steak is probably the size and class. Don't do this at home. Don't go there. But if you were to remember what a McDonald's quarter pounder is like, that's about the amount of meat on this plate. Okay. And here's
what were you doing there?
I'm going from childhood memory. Quarter pounders. But so I haven't had
at the restaurant in California.
Oh no, I'm just reading about it. But here's the medical question. There really is a medical question in this description. So to make this different, what this chef does is he puts some gold flakes. I'm talking about literally gold flakes on top of the steak. Now, and that's where these guys have more money than brains. So consuming gold, which is pretty much inert. Dr. Shealy, is there any medical benefit? Is there any reason why a person would want to consume gold flakes? And I'm talking about, these would be flakes probably, they're very, very flat. Think of it like if you were to sprinkle a little bit of uncooked rolled oats on top of the steak. That's a cooked steak. That's what this is.
My medical diagnosis is psychosis.
What are these people thinking? What are they thinking? What was it? Was this guy inebriated when he said, I'll tell you what, we're just going to put gold on these steaks and we're going to sell it to these guys who have more money than brains. And then we're going to put a screen in the sewer system. We'll get the gold back and we'll use it again. I just thought, class, you might find that humorous. And I'm not making this up. This is from businessinsider.com. Okay. So there's no medical reason to eat gold. Is that right, Dr. Shealy?
That is correct.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. Now, on a more serious note, so this mother decides to go into the ocean. Now, she doesn't go swimming. She just decides that she's going to wade in there, just roll up her pants kind of thing and get a little bit of salt water on her feet, on her ankles, maybe on her calves. And where? Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I've been there. I've been in the water there, and a lot of people go there. And I'll tell you what, I was a guest, and I was invited to go visit for the afternoon or the day, and so I went there, and I sat on the beach. I did not go in the water. I think the ocean's pretty polluted. But this gal ended up with necrotizing fasciitis, if I'm saying that right. Fasciitis.
Fasciitis.
And yeah, and so it's eating her legs, and it's a condition that is pretty darn serious. Let's talk about that more when we come back. What is it? And I didn't get this. Class, if you'd like to contact Dr. Norman Shealy or Dr. Sergey Sorin at their clinic, let me give you the number, 417-351-5221. 417-351-5221. And that office is in Springfield, Missouri. One more time, that's 417-351-5221. And the office is staffed during normal business hours, Monday through Friday. Springfield, Missouri. So, Dr. Shealy, this woman goes to Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, and she just goes a little bit wading into the water. She doesn't go swimming. She just, goes in, gets her feet wet, her ankles wet, and she gets necrotizing fasciitis. And this is a condition where some people, it's caused them to have amputations, where they've had their legs cut off, or their ankles cut off, or their legs cut off at the knees. Very serious. So this woman is, she's got this rare infection. It's life-threatening. She's on a ventilator, and all she did was just go wading during a brief vacation in the Myrtle Beach waters in South Carolina. Dr. Shealy, what is this? What's going on with this? Are you of opinion on this?
Well, it's pretty serious. Obviously, the pollution is beyond anything I was aware of, although I have to admit that I haven't, when I've been at Virginia Beach, for instance, many, many times over the last 20 years, I don't go in the water anymore because it looks polluted. But my gosh, that's horrible.
Yeah, well, I'm looking at an image, a photograph, if you will, of this woman's leg. And it's red. She's a white woman, and this leg looks like something that would be the result of someone taking a blowtorch,
right,
to her leg. It's got this, pus and blisters, and skin peeling, It really looks extremely painful. But this woman is on a ventilator, so pretty darn serious. So is our recommendation, you know what, maybe you might want to think twice about going in the ocean waters, of America. Is that something that we would say?
That sounds pretty serious to me. I mean, if it's that bad in Myrtle Beach, I don't know how far north or south you'd have to go to get safe.
Yeah, and class, think about this. We have reported that we believe that all the nuclear reactors leak. All the nuclear reactors leak. And all microwave ovens leak. Had some visitors at the farm, and I took out the tri-field meter, and I said, well, let's go see. I'll tell you what, you hold this. Let's set it to this particular scale, and let's go up to the microwave oven, and let's see what we find. Wow. So even when the microwave oven's off, if you look at the digital display and you bring the tri-field meter within 6 or 8 inches of the digital display, and what is that? That'd be like the clock on a digital microwave oven. Wow, there's electromagnetic radiation coming from the clock. All right, and the microwave oven's not on. It's just, and class, we use that as a vent because it was less expensive for us to buy a range hood microwave oven than it was to buy a range hood. Okay, it was like 1/3 the price to buy the microwave range hood than it would be to just buy a range hood, a fan. Okay, and ours ventilates the cooking fumes outside, so we don't just redistribute them, respread them around the kitchen. We actually exhaust them outside. Now, then we took this tri-field meter, the same one that you have, Dr. Shealy, and we just went around the kitchen. The kitchen is like the dirtiest electromagnetic environment in our house, and I'm sure it's the same in most houses. We brought it near the General Electric drop-in range. So this thing is a propane stove, if you will, and it has a digital display. Just try buying one without one. It's impossible. You will not be able to buy a current production model from a major manufacturer that does not have a digital display. So you just bring the tri-field meter near that. The burners aren't cooking. There's no clicking of the igniters. The stove's off. Everything, it's off. But the clock is running. And you bring the tri-field meter near the clock of the stove. Wow. It'll peg the meter. Okay?
Have you brought it near a turned off television set?
Yes, I have. And
same thing.
now, there you go. And it's off. Now, not unplugged. Okay? So what Dr. Shealy is referring to is, if you have a television that's plugged in and you think it's off, it's not off. It's like partially off, or it's mostly off. But it's on enough. It's powered on enough so that if you have a remote control and you're sitting in your chair or your recliner and you hit that button to power it on, it's on enough to say, oh, I'll turn on the rest of the way. Okay? So even though you think it's off, it's on. Somewhat. Same with your computer.
One estimate, at least 15% of all the electricity consumed in your house is from appliances that are plugged in but turned off. They're leaking.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and Dr. Shealy, I'll tell you what I've done. You know, since we have migrated to off-grid power, I'm looking at every single watt that we're consuming in our house, and I'm thinking, okay, so we use about 30 kilowatt hours per day. I'm thinking, okay, where is it going? So I have a display that I've wired into the kitchen with an Ethernet cable, so I can monitor how many watts we're using at any given point in time. Now, when everything is in background state, I'm talking about I don't have any lights on, just normal household operations, like the thermostats are running, looking at, should we turn on or not. The electric clock is running. The microwave oven has a clock in it. The refrigerators may cycle on and off. How much consumption? 1,000 watts per hour background. So I'm saying we are, without deliberately turning on lights, without turning on a mixer or a toaster or cooking something, without any of that, we're background using 1,000 watts per hour. So you're absolutely right. These devices, telephones, for those who have cell phone chargers, a small amount of current is going into charging the cell phones. Yeah, there are background devices. Now, in our house, I bought these 6-position, they're vintage, if you will, computer control switches. I've got 2 of them in the studio to power on monitors, so I can and the computers and so forth, and the mixer and the network switch and all these devices that we have to do this broadcast. I have 6 switches per one of these power distribution panels, and I have one stacked upon the other. So I have 12 switches. Now these physically disconnect devices. So when I turn on the switch for the monitors, they actually get energized. When I turn that switch off, they do not consume power. You know, the way you're talking about, most people have the monitors plugged in and they're drawing power. The computers are drawing power, not ours. Ours are physically disconnected by these switch boxes. And in the kitchen, we've got another one. So the television screen, unless we turn that on with this computer control, it's not a computerized, it's just a vintage computer control. What would it switch? Well, it would have a master switch, computer switch, monitor switch, printer, auxiliary 1 and auxiliary 2. That's what the switches are labeled. So I use them for a different purpose. You might be able to find one for about $25 shipped on eBay. There might be 1 or 2 available at any given point in time. And you might want to consider getting them, or have a power strip that will turn these devices on and off. But yeah, they're on. They're on, and they're polluting your house with electromagnetic radiation. I guess that's the point, Dr. Shealy, right?
Well, it is. And by the way, for your information, I do not have a microwave. I don't like them. I don't like to have them even in the house, but let alone I wouldn't cook anything in them.
Yeah, we use ours almost exclusively for ventilation. It has a fan on it and exhausts the air from the above the cooktop. So that's what we use it for. Let's see. I'm looking at tattoos and acupuncture. And I was thinking, Dr. Shealy, you and I have been talking about acupuncture and the acupuncture points, and you've studied it for years. Now I'm wondering, everywhere I go, I can't believe these middle-aged women who have these brand new ink jobs, INK jobs, on their ankles, on their chests. You see images of these actors, women, and they have them where their bra is or under their bra, and they can't wait to show you their latest defacing of their bodies with ink. Are you concerned about the ink that's used, the sterilization of the needles that are used, and the placement of the ink on acupuncture points on the body? I'm talking about the calves, the ankles, the chest, the arms, the forearms, the shoulders, the back. I mean, everywhere you can think of, Dr. Shealy. What are your thoughts about that?
I think they're too ignorant to live. That's desecration of the body.
And some of the people who have these, you would think that just by looking at them, you'd say, wouldn't you rather buy some food? I imagine these things are a couple $100, per disfigurement or mutilation. They're actually paying to deface their property. Mm-hmm. If it were a billboard and they were to spray paint a billboard, they could be arrested for a crime, right? But no, they're willing to have some... but they're willing to have some guy they don't know permanently disfigure their bodies with... that's worse than having somebody do your taxes. Paying someone to do your... we've got a guy who's... are they trained? Have they gone through medical training? But so from a medical standpoint and the Chinese art of acupuncture and ancient Chinese medicine, are you concerned about the points that are being used, Dr. Shealy, for?
Even a surgical scar, of course, because the acupuncture point has destroyed it, the energy flow.
Let's talk about that when we come back. Dr. Norman Shealy is with us. So, Dr. Shealy, I was chatting with one of our instructors who has a business, and this business is in the medical field. And I asked him about tattoos and his medical practitioners that work in his office. And so I said, well, do any of the gals or guys that work for you and with you have any of your assistants have tattoos? And he said, well, there's one. I said, well, how do you feel about that? And he says, oh, we've got a policy. No visible tattoos. So this gal, has to cover up the tattoo with clothing or wear a Band-Aid, to cover it up.
It's a pretty big Band-Aid.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, so the guy, you go to this tattoo, we'll call him an artist. That's quotes, in quotes. And so he charges about $100 an hour or more to do this disfiguring on a person's body. And he says, I'll tell you what, I've got this little jackhammer. And, well, actually, it's not really a big jackhammer. It's a small one. And I can hold it in my hand. And instead of like a big bit that destroys concrete, we'll just use this little needle on the end of it, and it will destroy your skin. And we'll put some ink there, and it'll put the ink under your skin. Everything's going to be great because I know what I'm doing, and you're going to love it. I mean, this is nuts. Now, we're talking about scars, right? We're talking about scarring the tissue with this little mini jackhammer that these practitioners use, right? Isn't that what we're talking about?
You bet.
So we're going to scar the tissue on acupuncture points, and how will that medically affect the person who is not smart enough to avoid this?
Well, we don't really know there have been no good studies that show you how toxic this is over a lifetime, but common sense tells us it can't be good.
Yeah, and if you look at the guys from World War II, most of them are no longer with us. U.S. Navy guys who have gotten anchors tattooed on their, arms, upper arms. You'll see that they've smeared. They've run. They're no longer sharp and crisp as they probably were when they got them in the 1940s. You gotta wonder, where did all that ink go? Well, obviously, some of it was consumed by the body. Okay, so are there any specific acupuncture points that you're concerned about, Dr. Shealy, that you'd say, you know what, this may affect your liver, this may affect your digestive system?
Well, obviously,
without
every
research.
Acupuncture point has its connections throughout the body because, each point is part of a line, and all of the major meridians actually connect one with the other eventually. So it's just plain old stupid, ignorant.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr.
mental
Shealy,
illness to me to start destroying the body.
Yeah. And then some of these people may wonder why they didn't get that job. They were interviewed, and they've got this offensive-looking tattoo, and they were so proud of it. And they wonder why they didn't get that job where they interact with people at restaurants and so forth. Dr. Shealy, you have recommended that I consume DHEA because I was on some steroids. I'm off the steroids.
Only while you were on steroids, yes.
Yes, right. Only while I was on steroids. Now, should I be using it as I'm off and I've weaned myself off? Should I continue? Because I got to tell you that it ameliorated the effects of the steroids. It was
yes,
really
it does. That's why you take it when you're on them. No, basically, if you're feeling okay, it's fine. Otherwise, there are 4 ways of naturally stimulating your body to make its own DHEA: magnesium lotion, natural progesterone cream, youth formula, and fire bliss. Each of these help stimulate your adrenal glands, and in men, testes, because they make a third of it, to make its own DHEA. And I strongly prefer that if you need a boost of DHEA when you're not on steroids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Fire Bliss, magnesium lotion or spray, natural progesterone cream. What was the other one?
Youth formula.
Well, I take 3,000 milligrams at least a day of your youth formula. discontinue that?
Oh, absolutely. You got all the right stuff.
There you go. Hey, Dr. Shealy, thank you so much. I'll see you next Wednesday.